Welcome to the CWPA Referee Education, the second video session of the 2019 men's fall season. We'll be taking a look at MAMs, misconducts, and flagrant misconducts. Player safety should be every referee's primary responsibility. Taking control of the game from deck decorum to the level of physical play, right from the very start, goes a long way in keeping that responsibility. The level of intensity executed by players needs to be smartly controlled in an acceptable manner, within the spirit of the rules. Hard fouls, over-aggressive fouls, and fouls with a violent or malicious intent go beyond ordinary exclusion fouls. Once fouls reach this level, they need to be dealt with appropriately and early in the game. Otherwise, game control will get out of hand and player safety becomes an issue. As a referee, it is your responsibility to establish a line of acceptable behavior in and out of the water. Communicate your intentions early in the game and be consistent in your application of the rules. Once the level of behavior and physical play crosses your established line, call what you see, setting a high precedent. Don't have second thoughts and fall into the trap of thinking you are the bad guy. The coaches are the ones that create poor deck decorum, and the players intensify the level of physicality in the water. Your job is to maintain control and use the tools in the rule book to control the game. In general, the use of a warning, yellow, red, or red cards are the primary way of dealing with game decorum for coaches and players out of the water. A yellow card to a player in the water is basically just a warning. However, exclusion fouls can be an effective tool for maintaining control. There is no limit on how many should be called, nor does the number have to be even between both teams. Players dictate how many will be called, and sometimes that number will go over 30 in one game. Your evaluation depends upon how timely and correctly you call the exclusion fouls according to the rules as written. Once physical play reaches the level of hard fouls, over-aggressive fouls, and fouls with violent or malicious intent, you are now moving away from the realm of exclusion fouls. Now you are looking at minor acts of misconduct, or MAMs, misconducts, and flagrant misconducts. The big three puts a whole new meaning for the punishment of behavior in the water. You should never apologize or feel bad for enforcing these rules on behavior that is not within the spirit of the rules. You are doing what is expected of your position as a referee, controlling the game, keeping player safety in mind. Now let's take a look at the differences between the three. Minor acts of misconduct, or MAMs, start at a lower threshold, a level that doesn't quite reach misconduct. However, a player receiving his or her second in the same game is excluded for the remainder of the game. Examples of this type of exclusion foul include a player directing minor comments to the referee, such as, "Call a foul," or "Where's that push-off?" "He's inside the 2," or making minor gestures to the referee, or making minor comments, gestures, minor taunting, or minor shoving an opponent. Many times referees overlook the use of a MAM and wrongly give warnings or ordinary exclusion fouls. By letting the situation continue and eventually simmer, it can develop into a major problem down the road. Not a good strategy. Misconducts are game exclusions for obscene language, over-aggressive fouls, persistent fouls, or disrespect to the referee. Flagrant misconducts are for playing in a violent manner. Violent acts with malicious intent, including fighting, throwing a punch, striking a player, elbowing, kicking, or headbutting in a violent manner are a few examples. It doesn't matter if contact is made. The key words are violent, malicious, and intent. Its penalty is game exclusion, a dead time penalty throw, substitution with a 20-second exclusion, ball in play to the offended team, and the player missing the next scheduled game. In the case of CWPA, it is a 2-game suspension. And in the case of an injury, the player can't participate in a game until the injured player is able to return to play. Don't award an exclusion foul or misconduct when players are playing in a violent manner, getting involved in underwater wrestling matches, throw or attempt to throw punches, or when violent play ensues. It's an injustice to the game and your fellow referees not to call a flagrant misconduct. All right, our first situation, minor act of misconduct, or a MAM. You can see the ball is located basically inside the 2, and over in the center forward position, a player just drove in there with the defender. This is where the action will take place, and it'll involve this defensive player that the arrow is pointing to. And here we go. All right, we'll take this and bring it forward. You can see where the foul, ordinary foul was called. Player moves out to the 2, passes it over, and he's going to take a good shot. Goal is scored, but this is totally unnecessary. Right here. That little push and sinking underwater afterwards. This must be controlled. All it does is simmer, and it comes back to haunt you if you don't get it called and taken care of right away. And it's not just an ordinary exclusion foul. That is definitely an act of misconduct, but it doesn't quite reach that level. If it was a little harsher and a little more physical, you could call a misconduct on it. And if the game was at a situation where the level of physicality was increasing and you needed to send a message, if you called a misconduct there, I wouldn't have a problem with it as an evaluator. But that definitely looks to me like that's a good example of a minor act of misconduct, a MAM. Again, real quick, I'll let you see it in regular speed. All right, this will be a unique situation. You're going to have 2 sets of players basically involved. The first group of players right here, there was no call in this particular situation, but there will be a call later on down here in the P1 position. So I'll let you take a look at it in real time. Okay, you had a chance to take a look at it. Now let's go back and take it back and see how this all evolved. Now the situation that we have here, the ball's getting passed up top to the P3 position. We got P2 here and P1 down there. All right, the backcourt, or I should say the perimeter referee, is in good position to take the transition here when the ball arrives at P3. However, you can't just fixate on the P3 pair of players. You have to know what's going on right here, because the ball is going to be coming around. So you have to have good peripheral vision and see what's happening here. And in this situation, boom, you see what happened right there in the P2 situation. That was a pretty over-aggressive move right into the defender, and he got away with it. And you can see the other player kind of comes up, and it looks like he was hit right in the head. That's a player safety issue. Those are things that we have to see, that must see. Now that's either going to be a minor act of misconduct, or it really should be a misconduct. And if there was any injury, a flagrant misconduct. Or if you're at a level at the game where physicality needs to be controlled, a flagrant misconduct would definitely be in order. And that's a pretty good, hard, what looks like a punch. Of course, from our angle, you can't see it that way. All right, so that gets by. Now the ball comes back over to him, and he's going to get the ball over to the P1. And now you can see he's coming through with an over-aggressive foul. Definitely a misconduct, no question about it. And that's what was called right there. Unfortunately, in this situation, we missed this player. But at least we got this player. And he's out for a misconduct. Okay, we'll take this one more time and let it run through in regular speed. All right. Here we have our last example that we'll be taking a look at, and basically this will be flagrant misconduct. Now let's follow the action. You can see where the arrow is pointed, where the ball is. The swimmer swimming down with the ball, and that is where everything is going to transpire once he gets up and takes and makes a pass. So let's see what you think as we go through this in live time. All right, we'll take it back to just before the situation occurred. Player's coming in. He's going to make a nice pass into the player in the center forward position, who does a nice backhand and scores the goal. So as we move this forward, you can see the pass. going off to the player in here, and he'll reach up with his backhand and we'll get it by the goalie and score the goal. However, we have a situation here where a player is now going to dunk the passer, which in itself would be a misconduct. But we have a couple of situations that occur as soon as that goal gets scored. Retaliation by the dark cap player on the white cap player, and the white cap player will respond in kind. So basically we have a double flagrant misconduct. This was called a double exclusion foul, which is not a good situation because these players are fighting in the water. Both of them are fighting. So both players should be excluded for the remainder of the game. It should be a flagrant misconduct. In CWPA rules, these players would be suspended for the next 2 games, not the next 1 game, but 2 games. Now, as a referee, what do you do if you call a double flagrant misconduct here? If it occurs during a timeout or after a goal, both players are excluded for the remainder of the game with their substitutes in the re-entry area. The first dead time penalty throw is taken by the team that would normally have possession of the ball, followed by the second. The referee will then award a free throw on or behind the half-distance line as after a timeout to the team that would have had possession of the ball after the timeout or after the goal. Both substitutes remain in the re-entry area until the earliest occurrence of one of the events described in Rule 7.3. So that's how you deal with a flagrant misconduct. And that's a good example. And we take it back one more time. There's no question that is fighting on both players' part, and it should not be tolerated.